One day, Persephone, the young maiden of spring, was picking wildflowers with her mother, Demeter, the goddess of grain. Entering the cool, moist woods, Persephone filled her basket with lilies and violets, but when she spied the white petals of the narcissus flower, she strayed far from her mother. Just as Persephone picked a beautiful white narcissus, the earth began to rumble. Suddenly, the ground cracked open, splitting fern beds and ripping flowers and trees from their roots. Then out of the dark depths sprang Hades, god of the underworld. Standing up in his black chariot, Hades ferociously drove his stallions towards Persephone. The maiden screamed for her mother, but Demeter was far away and could not save her. Hades grabbed Persephone and drove his chariot back into the earth. Then the ground closed up again, leaving not even a seam. Then, when the mountains echoed with Persephone's screams, her mother rushed into the woods, but it was too late. Her daughter had disappeared. Beside herself with grief, Demeter began searching for her kidnapped daughter in every land. For 9 days, the goddess did not rest, but carried 2 torches through the cold night searching for Persephone. On the 10th day, Hecate, the goddess of the dark of the moon, came to Demeter. Holding up a lantern, the shrouded goddess said, "I also heard your daughter's screams, but I did not see her. Let us fly to Helios, the sun god, and ask him what happened." Demeter and Hecate flew to Helios, the sun god, and weeping, Demeter asked Helios if he'd seen her daughter while she was shining down upon the woods. "I pity you, Demeter," said Helios, "for I know what it is to lose a child, but I know the truth. Hades wanted Persephone for his wife, so he asked his brother, Zeus, to give him permission to kidnap her. Zeus gave his consent, and now your daughter reigns over the land of the dead with Hades." Demeter screamed in rage and thrust her fist towards Mount Olympus, cursing Zeus for aiding in the kidnapping of his own daughter. Then she returned to Earth, disguised as an old woman, and began wandering from town to town. One day, as she rested by a well, Demeter watched 4 princesses gathering water. Remembering her own daughter, she began to weep. "Where are you from, old woman?" one princess asked. "I was kidnapped by pirates, and I escaped," said Demeter. "Now I do not know where I am." Feeling pity for her, the princesses brought Demeter home to their palace. At the palace, their mother, the queen, took an immediate liking to Demeter, and when she noticed how good she was with the baby son, the prince, she asked Demeter if she would live with them and be his nurse. The goddess gladly consented. Demeter grew deeply fond of the child, and thought he would someday grow old, and the thought that he would someday grow old and die was too much for her to bear. So she decided, while everyone else was asleep, that she would turn him from a mortal to a god. Every night, she poured a magic liquid on the body of the baby prince and held him in a fire. Soon the prince began to look like a god. Everyone was amazed at his beauty and strength. The queen, disturbed by the changes to her child, hid in the nursery and watched Demeter and the boy. When she saw Demeter place the child in the fire, she screamed for help. "Stupid woman," shouted Demeter, snatching the baby from the fire. "I was going to make your son a god, and he would have lived forever. Now he'll be a mere mortal and die like the rest of you." The king and queen then realized the boy's nurse was Demeter, the powerful goddess of grain, and they were terrified. "I will only forgive you," said Demeter, "if you build a great temple in my honor. Then I will teach your people the secret rites to help the corn grow." At dawn, the king ordered a great temple to be built for the goddess. But after the temple was completed, Demeter did not reveal the secret of rites. Instead, she sat by herself all day, grieving for her kidnapped daughter. She was in such deep mourning that everything on earth stopped growing. It was a terrible year. There was no food, and people and animals began to starve. Zeus grew worried. If Demeter caused the people on earth to die, there would be no more gifts and offerings for him. Finally, he sent gods from Mount Olympus to speak to her. The gods came to Demeter and offered her gifts and pleaded with her to make earth fertile again. "I never will," she said, "not unless my daughters return safely to me." Zeus had no choice but to bid his son, Hermes, the messenger god, to return Persephone to her mother. Wandering into the underworld, Hermes passed through the dark, smoky caverns filled with ghosts and phantoms until he came to the misty throne room of Hades and Persephone. Though the maiden was still frightened, she had grown accustomed to her new home and almost forgotten her life on earth. "Your brother Zeus has offered you to return Persephone to her mother," Hermes told Hades. "Otherwise, Demeter will destroy the earth." Hades knew he could not disobey Zeus, but he didn't want his wife to leave forever, so he said, "She can go, but first we must be alone." When Hermes left, Hades spoke softly to Persephone. "If you stay, you will be queen of the underworld, and the dead will give you great honors." As Persephone stared into the eyes of the king of the dead, she dimly remembered the joy of her mother's love. She remembered wildflowers in the woods and open sunlit meads. "I would rather return," she whispered. Hades sighed and said, "All right, go. But before you leave, eat this small seed of pomegranate fruit. This is the food of the underworld, and it will bring you good luck." Persephone ate the tiny seed. Then Hades' black chariot carried her and Hades away. The two stallions burst through the dry ground of the earth, then galloped over the barren countryside to the temple where Demeter mourned for her daughter. When Demeter saw her daughter coming, she ran down the hillside, and Persephone sprang from the chariot into her mother's arms. All day the two talked excitedly of what had happened during their separation, but when Persephone told Demeter about eating the pomegranate seed, the goddess hid her face and moaned in anguish. "What have I done?" cried Persephone. "You've eaten the sacred food of the underworld," she said. "Now you must return for half of the year to live with Hades, your husband." And this is how the seasons began. For when the fall and winter come, the earth grows cold and barren, because Persephone lives in the underworld with Hades, and her mother mourns. But when her daughter comes back to her, Demeter, goddess of grain, turns the world to spring and summer, the corn grows, and everything flowers again.